The Honourable Member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise in the House today to speak to Budget 2015 and Bill C-59, an act that will implement various measures contained within the budget. The budget contains many measures that I know our Canadians are looking forward to seeing put in place. And before I go on, Mr. Speaker, I should inform you that I plan to split my time with my honourable colleague from Dauphin Swan River Marquette. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by congratulating the Minister of Finance on his first budget, but especially on all of the hard work that he's put into this budget. It has long been my view that governments should spend when spending is necessary and save taxpayers' money when saving is possible. This budget controls spending within a balanced budget and provides important tax breaks and cost-saving measures for taxpayers. For this, I congratulate the Minister on his very important work. I'd also like to acknowledge the work that was carried out by the previous Minister of Finance, my good friend, Mr. Jim Flaherty. Mr. Flaherty paved the way for this budget during his time as a Minister of Finance. He oversaw important stimulus funding during the recession and reeled in spending following the recession. His success as Minister of Finance has allowed Canada to be in the strong economic position that it is in today. In terms of the budget itself, I'm very pleased to see that this is balanced. A balanced budget allows governments to cut taxes and pay down debt. And it should be noted, Mr. Speaker, that before the 2008 recession, this government had already paid down $37 billion in federal debt. This has allowed Canada to emerge from the recession as a global economic leader with the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7. Canadians expect the government to work within its means, as they have to, and that is why having this balanced budget is so important. The budget is balanced while at the same time maintaining record transfers to the provinces for health and education and keeping the overall federal tax burden at its lowest level in more than 50 years. This is no easy feat, Mr. Speaker, but maintaining balanced budgets when possible is what is expected of any government. That's why I'm also pleased to see that the government has introduced legislation to ensure that all future budgets, except during times of recession, are balanced. I recently hosted a community teleforum for residents in my riding of Bruce Grey, Owen Sound, and that teleforum allowed constituents to vote on several poll questions and call in to express support or concern for actions of the government. There were several callers who expressed that they appreciated that the government had balanced the books. Furthermore, I asked participants to vote on a poll question related to the new balanced budget legislation. The result was an immense amount of support for this legislation. Having discussed the efforts the government has taken to balance the budget, I would now like to highlight several measures contained within this Implementation Act that will greatly benefit residents of Bruce Grey, Owen Sound, and indeed all Canadians. That first measure, Mr. Speaker, is a reduction in the small business tax rate from 11% to 9% by the year 2019. This measure will affect 100% of the small businesses in my riding of Bruce Grey and will support the local economies of the many small communities in the area. It is estimated that this measure will reduce taxes for small businesses by $2.7 billion. Yes, that's with a B, over the 2015-16 to 2019-20 years. This is an extremely positive measure that is very widely supported. Another measure that I'm very supportive of is the increase in the lifetime capital gains exemption from $800,000 to $1 million for owners of farms and fishing businesses. Several farmers in my riding over the past couple of years have expressed support for this measure, and we're very happy to see that it was in there. And they realize, Mr. Speaker, that it will keep more money in their pockets of farmers that are trying to pass on their farm to the next generation. And without this, Mr. Speaker, when you're transferring capital, it would otherwise be lost in taxes, and this is a huge benefit. We're always, I know my work and time on the Agriculture Committee and the Minister is there today, we're always looking at different ways that allows young farmers to get into the business, and this is a big one in that one. The lifetime capital gains exemption was increased in budget 2007 from 500 to 750, and then increased in 2013 to 800, and now up to $1 million. That's double over the course of them years. And that means that since 2007, it has been more than doubled, and like I said, it's great news for all farmers. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, increasing the tax-free savings account annual contribution limit to $10,000 is a very positive measure for many residents in Bruce Grey Owen Sound. I have already had several constituents contact me asking when they can begin investing more in their TFSAs. I have been pleased to inform them that this measure is effective for the 2015 taxation year. Despite what some have said about this measure, the TFSA helps many seniors and low middle income Canadians save their money. In fact, Mr. Speaker, more than half of tax-free savings account holders earn less than $42,000 per year, and nearly 700,000 seniors who earn less than $22,000 have a TFSA. Therefore, this is a measure that supports a wide range of Canadians. Along with the TFSA, seniors rely on their registered retirement income funds, or RRIFs as they are commonly known. Many seniors welcome the announcement that Budget 2015 will be reducing the minimum withdrawal factors for the RRIFs. Currently, a senior is required to withdraw 7.38% of their RRIF in the year that they turn 71. And I think I should note that we actually raised that, can't remember the year, Mr. Speaker, but we raised it from 69 to 71. This then increases each year until 94, when the percentage is capped at 20%. The new RRIF factors will range from 5.28% at age 71 to 18.79% at age 94. This will allow for seniors to have greater flexibility when drawing on their retirement savings, and also reduce the risk of outliving their savings. And you know, I think it's so important to point out, Mr. Speaker, that it was these seniors that raised that money during their working years, and we've helped them use it and able to use it to enhance their retirement, but more on their terms versus the government's. And finally, Mr. Speaker, this bill will also implement several important measures to support our veterans and their families. And this will be done by providing a new retirement income security benefit to moderately to severely disabled veterans, expanding access to the permanent impairment allowance for disabled veterans, and creating a new tax-free family caregiver relief benefit to recognize caregivers of veterans. These important measures will ensure that our brave men and women have the support that they need and most certainly deserve. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to wind up by highlighting the success of this and previous budgets since 2006. Since 2006, a typical two-earner Canadian family of four will receive tax relief and increased benefits of up to $6,600. This is due to the fact that the government has consistently been lowering taxes and introducing support measures. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that I think we're up around 140 different taxes that this government has released, and I'll stand to be corrected on that number, but I believe I'm pretty close. And that's a lot. And you know, one thing that I remind constituents sometimes, because you hear from them and some will say, well, that one doesn't benefit me. Well, of course, not every tax cut benefits every Canadian. For example, if you have a young family, young children, seniors aren't going to benefit from what we've done there. The same thing as young people aren't going to benefit from things put in place for seniors. But overall, every Canadian will benefit from at least one of our cuts. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to wind up and we'll take questions.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Ottawa Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened carefully, particularly the beginning of my colleague's speech, and he said something that I thought was interesting about how budgets should be crafted, and I then listened to what he said and what's in the budget. So here's the problem with what was put forward by my colleague. He forgot to mention that the Conservatives took the approach of a fire sale to balance the budget. So what do? They cut public services, veterans, meat inspection, 19,000 jobs gone as a result. They then fire sale on General Motors, which they had to be pushed and shoved to actually respond to in 2008 when they were denying there was a recession. He forgot to mention that. And then to put a cap on it, income splitting, which is going to only benefit 15%. I know it's riding well. There's a lot of people hurting and suffering, and they will not benefit from the income splitting. So I'd like him to address the fact that this budget leaves so many people left behind, and that they approach this balance by selling off these assets, raiding employment insurance, and not helping everyday people.
Honourable member for Bruce Grey Owen Sound.
Well, through you, Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague across the way for his question, but he's wrong in quite a few areas. He touched on at the start about food inspection, what have you. And I'll tell you, as a former farmer, an active farmer, still have my land being farmed, but you know, I take offense to that, because we have the safest food in the world, and we have a great system in there to make sure that it stays safe, and you know, the job is being done, and I think that we have to give due credit where it's due. But you know, to his comments at the end there about people, every part of the world, I think, or every part of this country, I should say, have people that from time to time, struggle. But I can tell you that he's wrong on his income splitting. This is wanted, and I think it's needed, and it will be widely appreciated once it's in place.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Lac St. Louis.
Speaker, I would just like to ask, give the honourable member a kind of hypothetical scenario and ask him what he would do if he were a middle-class family with, say, young or adolescent children, and he wanted to save for them to go to university, and he was given some extra money, or that family was given some extra money. Perhaps their debt was finally paid off, though we know that Canadian families are very much in debt these days. But assuming that there was some extra cash around, perhaps through the Liberal child benefit, when it's implemented, would the honourable member put that money in a TFSA, or would he put the money in an RESP, which would earn him probably 25% per year return?
Member for Bruce Grey Owen Sound.
Well, again, through you, Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague down there for the question. But at the end of the day on this, the easy answer is people want choices. And if people want to choose, put it in an RESP, in a TFSA, or something else, or keep it in their in a shoebox at home. That's their prerogative. But I'll tell you one thing that Canadians do not want. They do not want the Liberals' child care plan, and especially not the NDP's child care plan. They want the choice. They say to me, you give me the money back in my pocket, like our government has done, and we will decide how we want to distribute that and put our kids in daycare. And I think I can speak, Mr. Speaker, with a little bit of knowledge on this, is because two of my sons have young kids that they're in daycare. My wife and I, in fact, my wife's babysitting two of them today. That's how we help out our family and my kids.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague for the great speech. I guess one of the things that strikes me when he talks about these expensive plans that the NDP have in particular for this state-run daycare that they want to put in place, we know full well it's going to cost billions of dollars. It's going to impact about 5% of the kids. But I would just like him to talk a little bit more maybe about the importance of a balanced budget. We brought in, I think he mentioned $6,600 in benefits and increased taxes through all kinds of things, TFSAs, GST reductions, tax credits over the years, income splitting. apprenticeship training programs, student grants, and those kinds of things. And we've gotten to the point now where we have a balanced budget. We're very proud of that, but I'm just wondering if he can talk to us a little bit about the importance of a balanced budget. Both the other parties on the other side are talking about increasing taxes. Every single family in this country is going to be hit with that, and I think the only thing that they think of fairness, they think of taxing every family equally. But could you talk a little bit about balanced budgets and our program around that?
Honourable member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound, a short
Mr.
response.
Speaker, and a great question, finally a good question, from my colleague from Saskatchewan. And he's absolutely right here. You know, if I had a list in front of me of all the tax cuts and benefits that this government has done, Mr. Speaker, you'd probably cut me off because I wouldn't have time to read them all. But balancing a budget, the member that just asked that question comes from a farming background. He knows what it's like to owe money and what have you, and borrow money to enhance his farming operation. But he also knows at the end of the day that he's got to pay that back. You can't keep running deficits, debt, building it up, and it's whether it's a small business loan, a bank loan, or a student loan. You have to pay the mortgage off someday, and so great question. Thank you.